2 years after our marriage, my wife was still financially dependent on me. Ignoring her desperate pleas, I abandoned our newborn son and flew far away. Years later, she became a renowned forensic pathologist, famous both at home and abroad, and found a reliable and considerate stepfather for our son. At her celebration banquet, someone mentioned me. When Fu Yanbin abandoned his wife and child, did he ever imagine that Sister Lin would achieve such great success? Him? He's probably having a blast in some rich woman's pants. If Fu Yanbin came back, would Sister Lin take him back? Our 6-year-old son became anxious. Mom can't go back. Xiaohu only recognizes this dad. Lin Shuyu picked him up and glanced at those people. On this joyous occasion, I don't want to hear that unlucky name again. She didn't know yet. The unidentified male corpse she was about to autopsy, transported from the front lines, was me. I floated in the air, watching my son affectionately run into another man's arms, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. He had just been born when I left. In the blink of an eye, he had become such a cute, adorable little dumpling. I wanted to reach out and touch him, but my hand passed through Xiaohu's body in vain. Don't worry, Dad. If that bad uncle comes back, Xiaohu will definitely help Dad beat him away. Bad uncle. I smiled bitterly. I had become a bad uncle in his heart. Song Winshan smiled and pinched his little cheek. Naughty, that's Xiaohu's real dad. Xiaohu pouted, humph. Xiaohu doesn't have a dad who abandoned Mom and Xiaohu. I floated in the air, choking back sobs. That's not true. Xiaohu, Dad didn't want to abandon you. Dad just didn't have a choice. The conversations of others reached my ears. Fu Yanbin still doesn't have the fate to enjoy a good life. If he had just endured a few more years of hardship with Sister Lin, he would have had everything. Now, it's difficult for him to even come back. Sister Lin has long hated him to death. Ha! Serves him right. That kind of man only deserves to be a rich woman's dog. He ran off with a rich woman during Sister Lin's most difficult time. It was Brother Song who supported her through all these years. If he comes back now, he'll be a third wheel. Do you think he wasn't a third wheel when he was with that rich woman? That kind of person will crawl into anyone's pants as long as they're given money. Lin Shuyu, at the center of it all, gripped her wine glass, her knuckles turning white. Shut up. The mocking laughter stopped abruptly, the smiles freezing on their faces. Someone forced a smile. I'm sorry, Sister Lin. After all, he's your ex-husband. We shouldn't laugh at people. Yes, it's our fault. We won't talk about Yanbin anymore. Unexpectedly, Lin Shuyu sneered. Who said that's why? Everyone was stunned. She continued, I just don't want my husband to hear that unlucky name on this joyous occasion. Our child has just been born. Everyone was shocked. Then they began to offer congratulations. Congratulations. True lovers finally together. I knew Sister Lin couldn't possibly be defending that man. That kind of man getting into the police force was a disgrace to the police. Luckily, he degenerated and left on his own. I floated silently in the air, turning my head to look in Song Winshan's direction. They said it was this man who had accompanied Lin Shuyu through the most difficult years. I truly had no right to say anything. But a wave of bitterness still couldn't help but rise in my heart. I once told Lin Shuyu that when she became a chief forensic pathologist, I would accompany her to interviews everywhere, and we would be the divine couple of the police world. Now she has done it, but the man beside her is no longer me. This day, Lin Shuyu was completely drunk before leaving. On the way back, Fu Changyin stopped her car. The window slowly lowered, and Lin Shuyu's gaze was unfriendly. Ever since I left, she hated me, her sister by association. Fu Changyin's face was ashen, and for the first time, she begged her, Ms. Lin, there's a body that only you can restore. Don't you have forensic pathologists on your team? I don't trust them. Only your skills are up to the task. Lin Shuyu sneered. What kind of body could make Captain Fu come personally to invite me? It's not your brother, is it? Fu Changyin's hand clenched tightly. She held back for a long time and didn't reveal my identity. I'm sorry. This is a personal invitation. You can have as much money as you want. Do you think I look like I need money? Lin Shuyu's words were cold. It seemed that the person being questioned was not her sister, but her own useless self from many years ago. Fu Changyan's hand trembled slightly. Then, what if it's brother? Lin Shuyu was stunned. Then she burst out laughing. That would be perfect. Her sister suddenly raised her head, her eyes filled with disbelief. The corners of Lin Shuyu's eyes were a little red from the alcohol, and the corners of her mouth curled up. Did he send you to find me? I hope you Fu family members will stop bothering me in the future. I live a very good life with my current husband and son, and I don't want anyone to disturb us. Even if it really is your brother, I won't take this job. The driver started the car, and her sister hurried to stop it, but Lin Shuyu had already raised the window and drove away, leaving her sister alone, standing there, smashing her phone onto the ground. I floated in the air, watching, wanting to persuade her not to look for Lin Shuyu for my sake. So many of my colleagues couldn't even find their bones. I'm already lucky to just be unrecognizable. But I couldn't touch her, nor could I make a sound. I could only watch my sister weep in vain. When Lin Shuyu went to work the next day, she saw the body that Fu Changyan had asked her to restore. Fu Changyan's forensic pathologist was at a loss with the body, and she passed by, standing at the doorway for a moment. Her gaze lingered on the corpse. It was the most severely damaged body she had ever seen. There was hardly a good piece of flesh on the entire body, making restoration extremely difficult. But recently, there had been no reports of such a serious murder case. After a moment of contemplation, she patted the person's shoulder. Tell your captain, I'll take her case. I lay in her studio, watching her change in her gear and put on her gloves, without a trace of her past naivete. As I watched, I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. This is the real her. But the more she worked, the more solemn her expression became. I didn't know if she had noticed. This corpse's height, arm length, and all other physical measurements were exactly the same as mine. My hand had been simply repaired, and she hesitantly grasped my wrist. The hand she had grasped countless times, she could find a familiar feeling with just a gentle hold. Her brow furrowed even more tightly. But what could this mean? She smiled and shook her head. How could it be? There are more people in this world than just me with this hand circumference. Besides, this is a corpse. The size is certainly not the original size. Just as she was about to let go, her fingers touched something hard. Looking down, the wedding ring was still on my finger. Lin Shuyu gasped. She recognized this. Back then, when we were crammed into a drafty rental, and a single bucket of instant noodles had to be stretched over 3 meals, I somehow managed to save enough money to buy a diamond ring. The day I put the ring on her finger, I watched her admiring it happily, a hint of heartache in her smile. Don't worry that we have nothing now. I will definitely make sure you have a good life in the future. At that time, she hugged me and gave me a big kiss. I know, my police officer husband. I smiled wryly. She probably didn't expect that the man who promised to give her a happy life would abandon her with a newborn son, leaving her to work and take care of the child alone, several times ending up in the hospital from exhaustion. But Lin Shuyu, I had no choice. I really wanted to protect you both. She carefully took off the ring, holding it between her thumb and forefinger, turning it under the light, examining it. The more she looked, the more serious her expression became. It was the style she had looked at for 2 years. How could she not remember? Quickly taking off her gear, she took out her phone with slightly trembling hands and opened her contacts. But my contact information had long been deleted. Taking a deep breath, she accurately typed my phone number on the dial pad. It connected. For a moment, there was silence on both ends. Lin Shuyu was waiting for me to speak first, but I could no longer speak. Shuyu, my voice came from the other side. I was stunned. Lin Shuyu's tense muscles seemed to relax a little. A seemingly self-deprecating smile crossed her lips. Shuyu, without you, I'm not doing well. The voice on the other end of the phone was very tired. I suddenly remembered. It was a phone recording I left during my most difficult time, even though she had already blocked me then. A cold laugh sounded, and Lin Shuyu hung up the phone. Turning to look at the corpse, she shook her head. I'm really crazy to actually suspect this corpse is him. Pausing, She looked at the ring in her hand, her smile becoming even more sarcastic. This ring isn't custom-made. How could she think that just because of a similar ring? It would be better if he were really dead. That way, she wouldn't be overthinking. She put the ring aside and paid it no more attention. Although she hadn't confirmed it was me, Lin Shuyu wasn't one to give up halfway. She worked until her back was soaked with sweat before finally finishing for the day. My limbs had been reattached, and the torn skin had been flawlessly stitched together. Looking at her extraordinary skill, I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile, only to pause when I saw my fragmented face. If she repaired my face, what would she think? "Mommy!" A childish voice rang out. I instinctively wanted to block the door, but Xiaohu walked right through me. "Xiaohu, don't go in." I wanted to grab him. There's a corpse inside. How can a child see that? "Xiao." Lin Shuyu helped me stop Xiao. "Didn't I tell you not to enter Mommy's studio without permission? It's because Mommy hasn't come home. Daddy and I are getting impatient." Lin Shuyu chuckled, pinching his nose. "Be good. Mommy will take you home now. It's full of dead people here. Don't run in here next time." Xiaohu isn't afraid of dead people. Xiaohu wants to be a police officer in the future. Lin Shuyu and I both paused. These words were very similar to what I said when I was a child. With a sigh, Lin Shuyu picked him up. "Mommy." Xiaohu, leaning on Lin Shuyu's shoulder, glanced towards the autopsy room. "Who's inside?" "Mommy doesn't know either. Could it be Daddy?" "Don't talk nonsense. Daddy is at home." Xiaohu then realized he had said something wrong. No, it's that bad uncle." Lin Shuyu's footsteps paused. "Mommy." Xiaohu thinks the person Mommy dissected looks a little familiar. I was a little surprised. He had never met me. How could he think that? They say children can see things adults can't. Could he sense me? I cautiously reached out my hand. "No way." Lin Shuyu pinched his little cheek. "Dad." "Ahem. That bad uncle is alive and well far away from us." Xiaohu's little hand gradually clenched, hugging his mother's neck tightly, avoiding my hand. "Xiao doesn't like bad uncle. Xiaohu hates him." My hand froze in midair. Lin Shuyu gently patted his back. "Mommy does too, but Mommy hates herself from back then even more." Restoring the body was extremely difficult, and after 2 days of hard work, Lin Shuyu had only completed 50%. At this time, another person came to the door. "Is the body restored yet?" Lu Siruan's first question upon arriving was about the progress. After I left, Lin Shuyu and my childhood friend had no further contact. Lin Shuyu was a little surprised by her visit this time. Then a disdainful smile. "Officer Lu, why are you so concerned about that corpse? It's not like it's your old lover." Lu Siruan restrained herself. After all, it's Changyin's private commission. As someone who grew up with her and her former superior, I should show some concern. But the next second, a slap landed hard on her face, sending Lu Siruan crashing to the ground. The veins on the back of Lin Shuyu's hand bulged. "Why don't you just admit you're her sister-in-law?" Song Changyin, saying that Fu Yanbin ran off with a rich woman was just you two saving face. Everyone in the police force knows he latched onto you, and even betrayed the force to protect your reputation. I closed my eyes in pain. No, Shuyu, no. Lu Siruan wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, glanced at the blood on her fingertip, and sneered. "Lin Shuyu, I did spend some time with him, but the person who spent 10 years intimately with him was you, not me." Lin Shuyu frowned. "So what?" Lu Siruan stood up. "Didn't you notice anything unusual about him?" "Unusual?" Lin Shuyu laughed. "The only unusual thing about him was that he suddenly abandoned us, mother and child, after I gave birth to Xiaohu. And that's all thanks to you, Officer Lu. You're such a bastard." Lu Siruan grabbed her collar. "Do you know he—" "Don't." I rushed forward like a madwoman, trying in vain to stop Lu Siruan. "Don't tell her. I beg you, Erwin. She has a new family now. Just let her hate me forever. I beg you." Lin Shuyu frowned at her. "Go on. Don't tell me you're scared." Lu Siruan's hand trembled, and she pushed her away fiercely. "What if I told you that the body is him?" Lin Shuyu scoffed. "Well, that's a double blessing. You." Lu Siruan's teeth were almost grinding. "You'll regret this." I won't. She curled her lips. I'll just send a banner to the person who killed him. Smack. A slap landed hard on her face. Lu Siruan straightened her collar. If I had known you were this kind of person, I should have stolen him from you when he chose you. She turned and left. Lin Shuyu wiped the corner of her mouth and looked at the call record she had dialed to me earlier. She sneered. Really going to any lengths? Shuyu. A panicked voice came. Song Winshan came forward in surprise, taking out a medicine kit. What happened? Who hit you? She pressed his hand down, her tone light. It's nothing. I'm going to the studio. You and Xiaohu wait for me at home. After saying that, she left. Song Winshan's hand still paused in midair, watching her departing figure, his sigh carrying a hint of helplessness. The body restoration work for today was coming to an end. She began to suture the skin of my face. But the more she stitched, the more her expression changed. Halfway through the stitching, she suddenly stopped, looking at the half-face. After a moment of hesitation, she went out and made a phone call. Yes, I sent you the number. Does the body have an identity? Still nothing? What about DNA? Got it, thank you. I watched her from above with a bitter smile. You won't find anything, Shuyu, at least not yet. Back in the autopsy room, she stared at the half-face. Her skills were renowned both domestically and internationally. Whether it was autopsy or body restoration, she was top-notch. The body she restored could achieve a 70 to 80% likeness to their living appearance. But now, she started to doubt her own abilities. Clenching her fists, she took a deep breath and picked up the suture needle again. A few hours later, she struggled to support herself, staring at the stitched-up face, her voice trembling slightly. Impossible. You. She suddenly remembered something and quickly dialed my number. The familiar voice, the one she had heard before, came from the other end. Shuyu. Shuyu, without you, I'm not doing well. She froze in place, finally realizing it was just a recording. Hit. After a long while, a bitter laugh suddenly came from her studio. Her hand gently caressed my face, stroke after stroke, touching it carefully. Just like countless days and nights in the past, when I was still by her side. Yanbin. Fu Yanbin. What exactly do you want me to do? This time, Lin Shuyu took the initiative to find Lu Siruan. Speak. What are you plotting this time? Lin Shuyu cut to the chase, throwing my restored photograph onto the table. Lu Siruan was stunned, looking at her excitedly. You restored it? Where is he? Lin Shuyu's face darkened. First tell me what you want to do. What do you mean? Lu Siruan frowned. First abandonment, and then you send his body to me. What? Do you want me to regret it? He's dead. Lin Shuyu, what are you thinking? Then what are you thinking? A palm slammed hard on the table. Lin Shuyu was a little emotional. When Xiaohu and I were at our hardest, he ran off with you. There hasn't been a single word from him in all these years. It took me 6 years to finally forget about 70 or 80% of him. And now he's back? And as a dead man? What? Trying to make me regret it with this method. Lin Shuyu grabbed Lu Siruan by the collar. I don't care what he wants to do, but I will never forget the suffering Xiaohu and I endured after he left. I'm telling you, I can't possibly regret it. If you're going to abandon us, then go far away and never come back. Why send the person back? Lu Siruan laughed out of anger. Lin Shuyu, you really don't know how much he sacrificed for you and your son. Sacrifice? Lin Shuyu seemed to have heard a joke. What did he sacrifice as a father? Xiaohu never even saw his father's face once. He was so young then, crying every day and asking me where his father was, saying that other children were mocking him, saying his father was a disgrace to the police force. Tell me, where was he when Xiaohu needed him the most? And you have the nerve to talk to me about sacrifice. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and I knelt on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm sorry, stop it, I didn't want this, I had no other choice. I'm sorry. Lu Siruan. She tightly gripped Lu Siruan's collar. I don't care what he wants to do, but I won't regret it, not in this lifetime. After saying that, she pushed the person onto the sofa and turned to leave. I watched her receding figure, my vision blurred with tears. Yes, don't regret it in this lifetime, Shuyu. Just think of me as someone unworthy in your life and move on with your new family. Lin Shuyu locked herself in the studio for a whole day, doing nothing else, just staring at that ring in a daze. Only when her assistant reminded her to organize the report did she snap back to reality. She printed out my autopsy report and handed it to her assistant. Teacher Lin. Her assistant's words brought her back. Why are your hands shaking so much? Do you need a rest? Only then did Lin Shuyu realize her state. But she hadn't worked at all today. Could it be because of the gruesome autopsy report? It's nothing. She steadied her hand. After the assistant left, she still couldn't help but go to the information department to retrieve my information. I was a little surprised. My information had been cleared from the system 6 years ago. She should know that better than anyone. Could it be that she sensed something? I nervously clenched my 5 fingers. Seeing the name she entered, the staff member laughed. Why did Teacher Lin suddenly think of him? Didn't he defect from the police force 6 years ago? Lin Shuyu looked at my empty record, seeming to joke. Is it because the clearance level isn't high enough? The staff member was stunned. No way. Everything we can check here should be accessible, and the ones we can't check are usually those who have left. Lin Shuyu's gaze darkened, and she nodded. You're right. I smiled bitterly. I am indeed unsearchable. But whether I truly left the force. When my sister came to pick up the results, Lin Shuyu very officially handed the documents to her. Looking up, my sister looked at her face. You knew it was him? Don't you have anything to ask? Like who killed him? I'm just a forensic pathologist. Those things aren't for me. Lin Shuyu's tone was indifferent and distant, as if she had never known me. I was just like countless other work subjects in her career, not worth asking a single extra word. My heart stung a little, but it wasn't very sad. I laughed softly. If she could really let me go and move on, that would be good. Fu Changyan snatched the report, turned, and left. I wanted to go with my sister, but my soul seemed to be trapped around Lin Shuyu, and I could only leave with her. We arrived at the Criminal Investigation Department. I was a little surprised. As a forensic pathologist, she just needed to do the work related to the corpse. This kind of work of catching the murderer and investigating the truth of the case generally had nothing to do with her. I want to ask, have you found the person who killed him? Hearing Lin Shuyu ask this, my colleague and I were both stunned. Not yet. About how much longer? Are there any leads now? The person paused. Even I didn't expect her to be so concerned about the progress of the case. Teacher Lin, this case, to be honest, is a bit tricky. It seems that the higher-ups have invited a more professional department to investigate. The results should be out soon. Lin Shuyu lowered her eyes and simply thanked him. She was about to leave when she was stopped. Teacher Lin, why are you suddenly interested in this case? Are you starting to care about your ex-husband? That colleague used to be good friends with me. After I left, everyone condemned me for being materialistic and ruining the image of the police. Only he never said a word about me. Now looking at his somewhat expectant gaze, Lin Shuyu smiled. How could that be? I know who it is. It'll be convenient to send the murderer a banner of appreciation later. The colleague was stunned. He forced a smile and stepped back. I also gave a bitter smile. Sure enough, Lin Shuyu had long hated me to death. For a while after that, Lin Shuyu kept a close eye on the progress of the murder cases. But the identities of the victims in several nearby murder cases were all very clear, and none of the murderers used such brutal methods to torture their victims. She sat at her desk, staring at the ring in her palm. After a long while, she clenched it in her hand and sighed. How could it be? How could he be someone of that identity? Impossible. She shook her head and got up to leave the desk piled high with murder case files. But the next day, she received a notice to attend a memorial service for a comrade. She was stunned for a moment, her expression unchanged, and she simply responded with a yes. Her tone was ordinary, as if it were no different from her usual work. But when she saw the black and white portrait, her originally calm face cracked inch by inch. The me in the photo was from when I had just joined the police force, full of youthful vigor, with hope in my eyes, and smiling. I was floating in the air. It was my first time attending my own memorial service. It was quite strange. Many people at the scene reacted similarly to Lin Shuyu. When they saw it was me, they were all stunned. After all, I should be somewhere right now, pleasing some rich woman. Today, we remember a comrade who sacrificed his life for the stability and security of our country's borders. To infiltrate deep behind enemy lines, Comrade Fu Yanbin went undercover, remaining anonymous for 6 years, providing crucial intelligence to our side, helping us to crush the forces that have been disrupting border security for many years. But on the eve of victory, he was betrayed by a traitor and brutally murdered. The director choked up at this point. Tortured for 16 hours, he did not reveal a single piece of information until his death. Today we honor Comrade Fu Yanbin's great achievements, and at the same time pay tribute to his partner, Comrade Lin Shuyu. Lin Shuyu suddenly raised her head and looked at Lin Shuyu standing on the stage. She saluted everyone. Comrade Lin Shuyu and Comrade Fu Yanbin disguised themselves as a married couple, infiltrating deep behind enemy lines. For 6 years, they cooperated tacitly, risking their lives many times to send back important intelligence to our side, protecting the lives of our comrades. At the last moment, she retrieved Comrade Fu Yanbin's body, allowing his soul to return home. Thank you to Comrade Fu Yanbin and Comrade Lin Shuyu for everything they have done for us. The applause was like a tidal wave. Lin Shuyu stood on the stage. The microphone was brought to her lips. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. I don't think I have any great achievements. I should have rescued him alive, not. She choked up, not just retrieved a corpse. Everyone looked at her, and many people's eyes instantly turned red. For 6 years, Yanbin bore countless insults just to completely eliminate his police identity and gain the enemy's trust. I know that everyone has always had some opinions about him, but from today, I hope everyone can see him as a hero. His 6 years can be summarized in a few short sentences, but behind each sentence, there are near-death experiences that are hard for everyone to imagine. It could be said that without him, I would not have been able to come back alive. If it wasn't to cover the retreat of his comrades, he wouldn't have fallen into the enemy's hands. Someone sobbed softly. Many were colleagues who had once condemned me, and my silly sister in the front row bit her lip so hard that she drew blood. Lin Shuyu didn't cry. She just stood there. Her face was ashen. The next day, Lin Shuyu took the initiative to knock on Lin Shuyu's door. The two of them didn't have the same tension as before. Instead, they could sit down calmly and talk. The corners of Lin Shuyu's eyes were bruised. It seemed she hadn't slept well. Why didn't he tell me? Lin Shuyu's voice was low and hoarse. Lin Shuyu said lightly, "How could he tell you about this kind of secret mission? What I mean is, I'm his wife. I could have gone undercover with him." Ms. Lin Shuyu sighed deeply. Have you forgotten? The two people pretending to be husband and wife to carry out a secret mission cannot be a real couple, because concern leads to chaos. The important thing about being undercover in enemy territory is tacit understanding. And Yanbin and I grew up together. What we have the most is tacit understanding. At the same time, he doesn't love me the way he loves you in Xiao. Lin Shuyu smiled bitterly. I'd rather he didn't love me so much. Let me know that he can really live a good life after leaving me, much better than it is now. Lin Shuyu looked at her. Did you really not notice anything unusual about him? Or, during your pregnancy, those emotional fluctuations of his, did you really just take them as nervousness about you and your unborn child? Lin Shuyu was stunned. Lin Shuyu's smile was sarcastic and sad. Lin Shuyu, you're such a smart person. How can you be so confused about this kind of thing? Even I could see the struggle and helplessness he had when he decided to do this. Lin Shuyu's breathing trembled. Her eyes were terribly red. Why? Why did it have to be him? There were clearly other candidates. Why did he have to risk his life? Because he had to. For you, for Xiao. Lin Shuyu looked at her in disbelief. What? I was a little anxious. Erwin, don't say any more. She has a new family now. It's enough for her to know that I didn't betray her. Don't say any more. Her life has been hard enough. Don't let her live with guilt. But my emotions couldn't reach the living at all. Lin Shuyu was emotional. He's a criminal police officer, and you're a forensic doctor. Do you really think he hasn't offended anyone in all these years of fighting on the front lines? They've had their eyes on him for a long time. He's received threatening letters more than once, and the bargaining chips were you and the child in your belly. Several letters were thrown on the table. Lin Shuyu unfolded the paper with trembling hands. I anxiously wanted to snatch them away, but I passed straight through the paper. On them, densely packed, were threats and intimidation against me. The photos, however, were all candid shots of Lin Shuyu in her private time. He had already thought it out during your pregnancy. He would take care of you until you gave birth to the child, and then break off relations with you, letting everyone know that he had abandoned his wife and child, so that maybe the family would let you go. And he could just use this identity to go undercover behind enemy lines. Tears appeared in Lin Shuyu's eyes. He wanted to be a hero since he was a child, and he's still so willful when he's grown up. Lin Shuyu held the papers, her hands shaking more and more. Lin Shuyu sighed. Forget it. If he was still here, he probably wouldn't want me to tell you this. Now you and your new husband have a new life. You just need to know that he didn't wrong you. Just live your life well from now on. Wenshan's child is not mine. Lin Shuyu was about to get up, but paused at his words. What? Lin Shuyu seemed to be drained of all strength. Wenshan and I have never had a married life. That child is his and his ex-wife's child. His wife and my master died in an accident. We both lost our loved ones, and in the end, we simply decided to live together. Lin Shuyu was stunned. I know, I'm a bastard. I'm sorry to Yanbin. Lin Shuyu sighed. But I haven't been able to fall in love with another man for a long time. Marriage has long lost its meaning for me. I might as well use this to repay my master's kindness. Lin Shuyu didn't speak. After a long time, she got up and left silently. Footsteps came from the stairwell. Lin Shuyu looked up and met Song Wenshan's gaze. You're here. Lin Shuyu felt that all her strength had been drained. You're too tired. Drink some water and rest. Song Wenshan brought a glass of water and placed it in front of her. Lin Shuyu didn't drink it. You heard everything. Yes. I'm sorry. Song Wenshan paused, then shook his head. It's okay. I know you thought that way from the beginning. Lin Shuyu was stunned. She sighed. Wenshan, I could have accepted being your wife for the rest of my life. But that was before. I know this may be cruel to you, but it's okay. Song Wenshan sat down beside her. When you're rested, let's get a divorce. Lin Shuyu paused. Okay, I only want the money to raise Xiaohu. The rest is yours. Song Wenshan laughed. No need, Shuyu. You've already helped me a lot. Without you, my child and I wouldn't have known how to get through this period after the death of his father and my wife. You've done enough. Despite this, Lin Shuyu insisted on splitting half of the property with him. About Xiao, Lin Shuyu hesitated. I understand. I'll talk to him. Song Wenshan got up and went upstairs to Xiaohu's bedroom. My heart clenched. Will Xiaohu accept this result? He already regarded Song Wenshan as his father. Now that his parents are getting divorced, will he be sad? Unexpectedly, Xiaohu didn't cry or make a fuss, calmly accepting this fact. I followed nervously behind Lin Shuyu and Xiaohu, all the way to the martyr cemetery. Arriving in front of my tombstone, Lin Shuyu held Xiaohu's hand. Xiaohu, kowtow to your father. Don't. Xiaohu doesn't know my situation yet. Wait until he accepts me before he kneels. I instinctively wanted to stop him, but Xiaohu had already knelt down, respectfully kowtowing, and very solemnly offered a bouquet of chrysanthemums. I looked at him in surprise. He stood in front of the tombstone, looking at my photo. Dad, I'm sorry. Xiaohu misunderstood you in the past. You are a great hero. Uncle Song told me all about your deeds. Dad, I want to be a police officer in the future. A respected police officer like you. Lin Shuyu smiled gently, took Xiaohu's hand. Good. Xiaohu will be a respected police officer like his father in the future. My soul suddenly became very light. At this moment, my body, which had been wandering without a place to go, suddenly felt a sense of belonging. My soul gradually dissipated. I watched the two of them leave and smiled gently. Lin Shuyu turned back, looking at my memorial photo. Don't worry, I will raise Xiao well. After another great achievement, I was successfully promoted to bureau chief. I went back to give my mother the good news, and she looked at me with a smile. Little Tiger has grown up now and can stand on his own 2 feet. I excitedly showed her my dense collection of medals, patting my chest. Don't worry, Mom. I will definitely protect you and those who need protecting. Mom was stunned for a moment, seemingly reminded of something. Then she smiled. I know. Seeing you like this, Mom feels at ease. You've been too tired lately. Go out with Uncle Song and his daughter. I nodded vigorously. In the afternoon, Uncle Song's daughter came to pick me up by car. I turned back to look at my mother. Mom, aren't you coming with us? Mom still has work. She waved at me. I didn't realize then that this was our last meeting. Walking in the tourist attraction, I suddenly felt a strong panic. I turned around and wanted to run back. But Uncle Song grabbed my hand. Don't go back. I turned to look at him, but I saw the corners of his eyes were red, as if he had foreseen this moment. Your mother has been waiting for this day for a long time. Years later, I finally understood that she had wanted to die from the day she learned of my father's death. She seemed calm and indifferent, dealing with everything calmly, but in fact, she had long gone mad inside, just holding on to raise me. She had been waiting for the day she would be reunited with Dad. Mom passed away, peacefully lying in bed, wearing the wedding ring from over 20 years ago. Uncle Song said nothing and calmly handled her funeral arrangements. When I was sobbing uncontrollably, Uncle Song patted my shoulder with red eyes. Don't be too sad, child. Your mother, she finally got her wish. Many years later, I looked at the photo of my parents when they were young and suddenly understood why, for countless days and nights, Mom would sit in the darkness and repeatedly caress an old ring. It was the only relic left to her by the lover she couldn't hold on to.